I was stuck in this mindset for years of putting things off constantly. I would always be like, that's the future Alex to achieve. I don't have to do this now. I can do this later on. And I would find excuses not to tackle my insecurities or not to do the thing I know I needed to do. It was like for making content, for example, I would be like, I'll do this when I'm more confident. I'll make content and post it out there when I'm more advanced on my self-improvement, when I've made enough money to do it. Socializing. I used to seclude myself in my room all the time because I would always say I'd go out and socialize and have a date in life when I was shredded, when I was happy, when I was confident. And what you do when you wait for something else, you're constantly just sitting in procrastination. You're waiting for this perfect time that's never going to exist. And all you're doing is just letting time pass by, pass by, pass by. And you come up with all these rationalizations and these excuses that I'm focusing on myself right now. I don't need to go and have a date in life. I don't need to speak to women right now because I'm so focused on my career, focused on my business. I'm trying to get my mental health straight before I get a date in life or before I have a social life. Before I focus on my finances, I need to get healthy. All these excuses that you're coming up with are just ways of you avoiding your circumstances and ways of you avoiding your fears. And this is because your ego does this. Your ego kind of wraps around all these excuses and these thoughts to keep you still because it doesn't want you pushing out your comfort zone. As long as you are alive and you are breathing and you are comfortable, your ego and your own mind will come up with rationalizations, excuses. It will come up with ways to keep you where you are because it doesn't want to push itself out of its comfort zone. And the longer you give into this, the longer you give into the excuses and the thoughts and the insecurities, your comfort zone shrinks and gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller to a point where you can't do anything, where you're so risk averse that you just sit inside and seclude yourself. You sit in your room wishing of a better life, constantly thinking of a future scenario where you're confident, where you're shredded, where you're happy, where you have a date in life. And you're just reinforcing where you are not right now. There's a thing called the backwards law by Alan Watts. And for those that don't know who Alan Watts is, he's kind of like the first westernized philosopher to teach the philosophical teachings of the East. So he brought it into westernized society. And what he says with the backwards law is, the more you focus on the positive, the more it becomes a negative. And the more you focus on the negative, the more it becomes a positive. And by this, he means if you look at your scenario right now, where you are socially anxious, not happy with your friendship group, maybe you've got a rubbish job you hate, you're not happy with your life, you're a bit out of shape. Focus on where you are now instead of this version of you that is later on down the line. Because if you're focusing on that you that's later on down the line, this idealistic version of you, you're going to reinforce where you are not. But if you focus on where you are right now and the negatives, that you've got a bit of extra body weight, you can't speak to women correctly, you can't socialize without putting on this like persona of this party lad or trying to be someone who you're not. If you focus on them and fix them one by one, that's then going to turn into a positive because you are shredding your insecurities and your anxiety. You're dealing with your problems. But the more you attach this idealistic version of yourself and reinforce where you are not, you're just going to continue to sit in procrastination. You're going to sit at home wishing for a better life, constantly dreaming of a better life. And you're going to realize that nothing's changing. All that's doing is time is passing. And the most unhappy people are the people who have a dream but don't take action. And this was me for years. For so long, I was constantly in my head thinking, when I get confident, when I get shredded, I'm going to finally go and speak to women, or I'm going to finally have a good social circle. I'm going to make loads of money. And then once I've hit 10 grand a month, then I can live the life. But all you're doing is making excuses for yourself and putting things on further and further into the future. And this future comes and equates to the present moment and you've not got there. Then you start doubting yourself. Then you start beating yourself up. So you need to take action right now. And like action is key. Have a dream, have a goal, have a direction, but make sure you have action in that, because at every step you need to take action. And the longer you sit in inaction, the worse your anxiety is going to get, the worse your scenario is going to get, and the older you're going to get, and the more these things topple on top of each other. It can be really hard to break that cycle of pushing things off and like making excuses. And it's such an easy way out. It's always an easy way out to listen to your mind and think, oh, I'll do this tomorrow. I'll do that when I've achieved this. But to get to that person who does them things, to get to that person who's confident, who is shredded, you need to take the actions, because actions are just subcomponents of the bigger goal. Every time you go to the gym, every time you go for a walk in the morning, every time you force yourself out your comfort zone and speak to that stranger, that's all a little win. Each time, all compounding to the greater version of you. And the more you can focus on your negatives, the more you can focus on the fact that, look, I'm not great at socializing right now, but what can I do today? The better you're going to get and the more confidence you're going to build. And confidence is just the process of small compounded improvements over time, resulting in this bigger, grander confidence. So it's hard because the longer you sit there, the worse things get, and they're not going to go away on their own. And you need to stop with this victim's mentality. Like, if you have any sort of victim's mentality, like, why is this happening to me? Why am I socially anxious? And beating yourself up and really focusing on the fact that you can't do things, then you're just going to reinforce you are that person. But you need to break this old habitual way of thinking. You need to break free of the thoughts and the frameworks that are holding you back to the old you. And you need to transform into a new, better, more confident version. Someone who goes out there and takes action and does the actions of someone who is confident. Often it can be good to think, what would the future me do? This idealistic version that I've got, what would he do right now? Would he not go on that date because he's too scared? Or would he go out to the date and push through the discomfort of anxiety? Would he procrastinate on that YouTube channel, or would he sit down and do the work? Even if the videos aren't up to his extremely high expectations, would he just sit down and post out the work and push past the barriers of the excuses that come up in his mind? There are so many reasons why you're not achieving what you want to achieve right now, and the majority of it is because you're listening to the excuses that your mind's telling you. It really is like your mind doesn't want to win. I see it in mine all the time. I go through stages of my day where I like suddenly get really depressed or really anxious. I'll speak to someone, I'll get a massive rush of anxiety. And then for hours after, my mind's just so negative. Like, you're not as good as these people. Like, these people must have think you're weird, overanalyzing the conversation. And it's just my mind falling into them old habitual ways of thinking. And you need to break free of that. Bit by bit, you need to chip away at them old thoughts, them old frameworks. You need to become aware, and then you need to move forward as a new person. Every day, every morning you wake up is a chance for you to be this new person. This person who looks where he's at and makes decisions that better his present moment. But as I said before, that idealistic version of yourself, you don't want to focus on that, but it can be used as a tool. What would Alex in the future do right now? What would the person I'm trying to become do? And the more you do that, you will slowly become that person. But don't listen to your insecurities and anxieties, because the longer you sit in them, the worse they are going to get. I cannot stress that enough. I've experienced this myself. It took me years and years, I would say 3 years, to overcome social anxiety properly. To the point now where I still get the physiological effects of social anxiety. Like, I still get the increased heart rate. I still feel a bit weird sometimes, but it doesn't affect me as much. I can now make choices and decisions that, regardless of how I feel, I do them. But for years, this didn't get better because I sat in inaction. I had a victim's mentality and I just waited for things to get better without taking action. The expectation that I was just going to wake up one day and everything was going to be fine. But these problems you're dealing with, they need to be dealt with on a productive, mindful manner. You need to take action now. I cannot stress that enough. This is like a little conversation to the younger me. I'm just picturing him now in his room, so depressed, scrolling through Instagram, like looking at women thinking, oh, I wish I could go and talk to her. I wish I was in a relationship with her. Looking at other social groups, wishing I was a part of that. I just sat in my room, like beating myself up for how boring my life was. This is a message for him to go out and take action. Just go and speak to a stranger. Go to the co-op and go and speak to the cashier. Go and make that YouTube content you've been wanting to make. Start something, because the start is the hardest bit. And once you get past the hurdle of starting, momentum kicks in, the compound effect kicks in, and actions and choices get easier and easier and easier, because you realize that the barriers that are in front of you are just interpretations in your own mind. They're just frameworks and beliefs that you've set towards this certain predicament that are holding you back. And all you have to do is ignore your mind, ignore your thoughts, ignore your beliefs, and take the action. And as you do that, this self-identity of someone who goes out and pushes past procrastination, the person who goes out and socializes, that builds up. And then it builds up and up and up, and it continues to build up the more you push past the barriers of anxiety and the barriers of self-limiting beliefs. But it's all a process of not giving into procrastination and doing the things you know you have to do. You know what you need to do on a deep level. And sometimes we tend to put layers on top of this. So in reality, the most important thing for us is going to speaking to women right now. We know that on an intellectual level, our mind's so obsessed with, I just want a good dating life. I want to be confident around women. But then we put these layers on things over it to kind of take our mind off it. So like, I need to really grow a business. I need to get in shape and blah, 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 all these things. And then you put attention on them because you know it takes you away from the fact that you need to go out and take action, overcoming your anxiety around women. Say if there's a business you have, like you want to start a YouTube channel, but then you procrastinate and start a crypto trading business, or you start looking into social media marketing. The only reason you're not doing what you truly want to do is because you're afraid and you're scared and you don't think it's possible for you to achieve it. But that is all frameworks in your mind. It's beliefs. You need to push past them and start the job, start the work, start the conversation, go on the date, do what you need to do. Start today, because the more you leave it, the worse it's going to get, and nothing is going to save you. I get really passionate when I speak about this because this is everything that's the problem with me. And I still experience this now, but I'm getting better at just going, right, Al, shut up, don't listen to your brain and go and do that thing. And like the younger me needs this. More than anything, he needs to know that he needs to take action right now, because nothing is working sitting at home, sitting in an action and not doing what you need to do. Thank you very much for listening, people. Go and check out my Instagram. There's daily content there, me doing like gym rings and yeah, just living my daily life, seeing what my daily routine is. So yeah, I think you'd really like it, and there's more to come from me and the Backpacking Psychonaut. So yeah, thank you very much for listening, people, and I'll see you all in the next episode.